Hello, Gems. Welcome to another episode of Tiaras and Tech. I'm your host, Shelley Benhoff, and today I'm talking to Jessie Auguste, and she is a software engineer and also the co-host of the Glowing in Tech podcast. We talked about her interesting experience in psychology, her passion for representation for women in tech, and of course, our shared love of Docker. Without further ado, on to the episode. Hey Jessie, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Let's just jump right in and have you tell us your tech story.
Yes, so I originally had no idea that I was going to end up in tech. I studied psychology at university and was fascinated by human behavior and the things that make us tick and kind of the research that went into discovering what was going on in the human mind. I had the initial aspirations of going into mental health. However, upon graduation, kind of realized that it's a really difficult field to get into and you need to study a lot more to be able to become a qualified psychiatrist. So I kind of decided that I'd put that to the side for a moment and try and figure out what I wanted to do. And I was kind of working bar jobs and working as a part-time as a teacher as well. And then came across the place that I'm at now, SiteSafe, which kind of had this blend of behavioral science and psychology mixed with being a cybersecurity awareness app and kind of focusing on the human aspect of cybersecurity. It was for a sales role, so not something I'd done before, but I think I was interested enough in the tech that I decided I'd go for it. I got the role and quickly found out I was not very good at sales at all, but completely loved the company and was given the opportunity to move into another department. So I became a customer success executive and worked alongside the product and engineering teams to kind of figure out exactly what customers wanted and gather requirements for building things. And it was the kind of working together with the technical teams that was my favorite part. And I had no idea what a software engineer was before working there. It all seemed like, complete magic to me. And then working with the engineers, it was kind of like realizing slowly the penny was dropping that it was something that was possible, even though there wasn't a clear route for me yet. So it was actually the engineering team at SiteSafe that did a little introduction to Python course for some of us at work who were curious. And it was just a couple of evenings, once a week for a few weeks, and completely fell in love with it. So did all the research, all the Googling, looked around for all the ways that I could get into that role without necessarily coming from a computer science background. And it was after that that I found Coding Black Females, and through Coding Black Females found a load of people recommending a free bootcamp for women, the Sky Get Into Tech course. And it was from there I kind of never looked back, and I was fortunate enough to be able to apologies to the cat after all the self-study.
Please keep the cat on the screen.
She
Everyone
loves the
cats.
attention. So it was after all of that self-study I was able to stay at my company and transition internally again and became a software engineer at my company, which I've been at for a few years now. So that's kind of in a nutshell journey.
Yeah, that is amazing. You are one of many people I've had on the show who studied, something completely different from like coding. I've had people on who studied history, and I've actually had a lot of people who studied psychology as well. So I think that it's interesting that the whole idea of how humans behave, right, is very, very important in security. And I know this question isn't on the list I sent you, but I'm just curious. Your experience with understanding humans a little bit more than the average person, how does that help in coding like stuff to keep everything secure, hacker proof?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I definitely do think it helps and it plays a role because as we know, like the majority of cybersecurity attacks, successful attacks, are as a result of some form of human error at some point. It's usually a social engineering way. Somebody's managed to convince somebody else that they're somebody they're not. And so, really, if you want to get to the root of solving a lot of the problems, it's kind of being aware of that and making sure that you're advocating for the user at all points in the journey. I think especially with coding, something I'm really passionate about is secure coding principles and making sure that we're building the most secure platforms and software for people as possible, because we have a responsibility to make sure that the people who are trusting us with their data and their kind of like valuable personal information, we're doing the best by them. And so I think that having the psychology degree and understanding kind of some of the vulnerabilities that people might have is definitely something I can use to my advantage when I'm thinking about, okay, what's a really important security feature I need to consider when I'm building this new feature? Yeah.
Absolutely. I will tell you, in the olden days when I started in the 90s, security wasn't a thing yet on the internet. And the first websites that I worked on, in the URL was the ID of whatever record it was pulling. And so we would constantly get hit with, like attacks because the information was right there. So the industry very quickly realized that we needed like a normalized URL that would point to a record but not show the record name.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and you might be shocked to hear that that's still quite a common problem that people are built.
Really?
Yeah, people are still doing that, where like you can change where you're pointing to by just changing the digits in the URL. So definitely still a
Yeah.
problem, and it's the same thing as like people falling for the kind of the phishing emails. It's like it's something that
Right.
sometimes can seem really, really obvious, but if you're in a rush, you're not paying attention, you haven't taken those few minutes to kind of consider that that might be a possibility, it's really easy to fall into that trap again. So, yeah.
Yes. I can't believe that still happens. Oh, my heart. Oh, well. Yeah. So, what technologies are you interested in? And I added a note that I noticed that you listed Docker. And anyone that has listened to this podcast knows I'm in love with Docker. We don't have to talk about that specifically. I just wanted to throw it in there. But yeah.
No, it's a great mention. I think I'm interested in how much the developer experience has changed over the past few years, and Docker is a fantastic example of that, because if you think of all the jobs it's taking away from what us as the software developers would have had to be doing ourselves, it's just amazing how far we've come. And so another thing like Kubernetes and just being able to have so much of it, so much of what you would have had to consider for scaling and being able to build large data intensive applications just automated and like kind of in another service that you don't even need to configure and be watching all the time. I think I love that kind of thing. What are your
Absolutely.
what is it about Docker for you that you enjoy?
For me, just the automation from, I've been a programmer for over 20 years. And I come from a time where we didn't even have source control yet. So we were like overwriting our stuff and having to manually pull in another person's channel. Oh my God, it was
Oh
terrible.
God.
To see the progression of all of this to the point where you don't even have to set up a local development environment anymore and waste that time trying to follow someone else's instructions of how it worked on their machine to get it to work on yours. Like, I had an experience once for a company where that process was not documented. The person who um, had that experience had left. And so I had to reverse engineer all of that. And it took me 2 weeks. And they almost fired me because they thought it was taking too long.
Oh my
So
goodness, that's ridiculous.
imagine how that would have gone with Docker. Pull the image, build the container. I keep hitting my microphone today. Just pull the image and build the container. Bada boom.
Yeah,
5 minutes.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then there are things on top of that, right? Like, I don't know if you've heard of Git pod, but you can literally
Hmm.
kind of have you could have launch somebody else's branch from your browser, and it will spin up everything, like all of their, it's insane, like how much now is taken away in terms of the processes that were difficult, the pain points, the things that slow us down, and really aren't necessarily like, I don't think anybody necessarily grows that much from doing those little tedious tasks, or like learns that much from the 50th time doing it. So I really love that as a kind of industry, we're really good at trying to find those pain points and working on them and automating them to the point where they're no longer pain points anymore, and we can just get on with the really tricky stuff, the actual building the features.
Exactly. Yeah. And in terms of like scaling, Kubernetes, I wish my last project had been containerized and running on Kubernetes, because we started to get like 1 million hits every day when we were built for like 5 million a month. So we had to very quickly like scale up a physical server, but if Kubernetes were a thing, you would just increase the scale number and then hit run or whatever, execute, and it would just magically create the new server for your load balancer and everything.
Yes. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
magic.
It is magic. And just sometimes you can't even quantify the differences those things make, because it's because it touches so heavily on like the developer experience. You're doing things that increase psychological safety, make it a nicer place to work. I mean, you can take risks elsewhere because you're not so worried about these like critical infrastructure things happening and going wrong. Um, yeah, so I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you are also a trainer, I think. I also have training experience, some good, some bad, but I was personally interested in, how do you prepare to conduct a whole freaking training course, and advice for aspiring trainers, or me, someone who has trained before, but I'm always improving.
Definitely. A really good question. And I think that a lot of the time people's objections to wanting to be a trainer is that they feel they don't know enough, they're not ready, they're not prepared. And I think my response is always that if you commit to doing it, you will do the things in order to prepare for it and be ready for it. And I think just having an interest in that technology puts you like head and shoulders above the people that may have done a lot more of the studying but don't necessarily have that passion that you do. And I think it's really obvious when you are studying and being instructed by someone else when the instructor is passionate about something. So I think if
Mhm.
you have that passion and you have the desire to kind of share that with other people, you're already like, I know you're going to be a great instructor. And then also, I think you can never be 100% prepared to teach a course. Like, I can't tell you how many times on a course I've had somebody ask a question that I just can't answer, and that's completely fine too. Like, there's a kind of great thing about admitting that you don't know the answer to something. And
Mhm.
I think it's even better when you can say, I don't know, but let's figure it out together. And having that kind of relationship with a student where you are showing them how to figure out the answer is also a really valuable lesson. So, yeah, I would think we have a desperate need in the industry for more people to share things and make some of the more challenging technical topics a little bit more accessible. So, I would recommend that anybody and everybody give it a go. All you need is an interest in that thing, and from there, you'll get all the knowledge you need.
Absolutely. And I agree 100% that you don't have to be like the expert in something to teach it. I have plenty of courses that I have produced where I was interested in the topic ahead of time, but I didn't really know. Like Docker, actually, I started teaching that and I didn't know anything before it started. I just, I understood that I have the ability to learn pretty quickly. and just have that confidence in myself that I can do this, even though I'm not the expert. I will learn. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's a similar thing, like the two most recent things that I've kind of been deep into and have created workshops for. The first of which was Git and kind of using GitHub. And I think that came out of a frustration for how difficult it was for me to learn. Like I was struggling to figure it out. And I don't know if that was the same with you with
Yes.
Docker. It's like I can't
Absolutely.
find any resources that will simplify it for me. So how many other people are struggling? And then I'm seeing on Twitter and in classes that I'm in that other people are also finding it really hard. So it's like, okay, there's clearly a need for some content or some kind of like introductory instructional videos. Like let's do that. Let's try and figure it out. So yeah, I'd love to hear about how you came up with your Docker stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just like I was interested. It was a hot topic. I was also struggling. I feel like the best trainers, the best courses and content out there are by people who are learning something and who are struggling and who write or produce content detailing their struggles and how they fixed them, because other people are probably also struggling with the exact same thing. If you're struggling, others are. So I always champion people to just start a blog or whatever you want to do. Like it'll help people for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. And
Yeah.
then it's usually from those kind of things that people will contact you and try and ask you more questions, or you'll get feedback on what was clear and what wasn't, and then you'll just
Mhm.
incrementally improve on your abilities to disseminate and share information.
Yeah. I have to tell you, when I was trying to learn Docker, and I am in a niche technology. It's a Sitecore, and we had no course on how to how to containerize the application or anything. Like I am the only course that teaches that. Um, I couldn't get it to work. I was having all of these weird errors. I was, just researching them. I would fix one error, another would happen. Girl, when I got that to work, like I cheered like someone would do at sports. I'm
Yes, that
standing here.
joy.
I'm standing here. I'll do it. And I was like, please work, please work. And when it did, I got down on my knees and started crying.
Oh.
It was so hard. I'm really sorry for the audio just then, but I had moved away a
No,
little
no,
bit.
no.
But yeah, it was one of the hardest yet most rewarding experiences of my life when that app ran.
Oh, that's incredible. And that's it. Like that sense of satisfaction. Like
Mhm.
it's incredible to feel in that moment, but then you're also like, I want other people to be able to feel like this, right? Like
Totally. Yeah. And then, I just like automated a whole bunch of scripts for them and stuff. So no one would have to struggle like I did with that.
oh, it's
Oh, it
amazing.
was terrible. Yeah, so let's kind of switch the topic a little bit and talk about DEI. This is something that I am also passionate about, that I also teach. And, what kind of inclusion efforts are you most passionate about?
I think something that I really love about what you do and your podcast is exactly what I think is one of the most impactful ways that you can promote inclusion, which is just having representation and role models available and showing people like I can do it, which means you can do it. And like I think that is genuinely like one of the most powerful ways you can inspire and create change, because you're saying to the world and the people like you and the people who come from a similar background that like it's possible to do those things. And I think that's why it's like really important for platforms like this to exist, and something that I'm incredibly passionate about as well, and want to do for as much as possible. Yeah, how about you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I obviously, I am so passionate about providing women a place to celebrate each other, celebrate our successes, because so often, I don't know your experience, but pretty often if I achieve an award or whatever, if I post it online, there are always those people who are like, you have a man to, thank for that, don't you? Like, you didn't do this by yourself. And they try to take that, confidence away. And I'm a part of so many different communities where women never do that. you know when we achieve something, we're all just like, go girl, like, absolutely, you're amazing, all of that. That's the kind of support that we need, I think, as
Definitely.
women in the
Definitely.
in this industry and in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had it where I've kind of been to so many women in tech events, and also similar to you, grateful to be part of so many different communities, that my cup is refilled, I feel energized, I feel ready to take on the world. And then I go to like a more open um tech event, and yeah, like you said, I kind of realize I'm the only one in the room that looks like me. I feel like I'm being second guessed with the questions I get, and just like slowly that's kind of chipped away and I realize like, damn, these women in tech events and these like women focused groups are so important to be able to cultivate that resilience that means I can continue to do the things in not so women friendly spaces. And yeah, I think sometimes it's important for me to remember like exactly how lucky we are to have those things, because it really helps in the face of what we are doing, which is like being in an industry that doesn't necessarily consider or kind of champion us as it should do.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of groups for women, coding Black females. I took a look at this and I was like, I need to have this woman on the show, because I love all of these groups. There are so many. How did it start? How can people help or be just involved?
Yeah, so Coding Black Females was started by an incredible lady called Charlene Hunter, and she started it, I believe she was inspired after watching the film Hidden Figures and kind of going home
Love
after
that
the
movie.
film and realizing I want to create something like this where there is a space for these women like me to be celebrated and helped and support each other. And it started just as a simple meetup group, a monthly kind of evening meetup with software engineers, and over the past few years, it's exploded into kind of like an international hub. And we now deliver courses, boot camps, do regular like field trips and mentorship programs. Yeah, it's an incredible place, an incredible group of people. And in terms of getting involved, if you are a Black woman or non-binary person, you're welcome to sign up and become a member. You get access to all the resources and all the courses, as well as teaching a few of the courses. I'm also very lucky to be able to attend a lot of them, and I owe my ability to move into software as a result of being so well mentored and kind of inspired by the women I've met through that organization. And then in terms of supporting, we're always looking for people to support on courses and mentoring. Yeah, just head to codingblackfemales.com and yeah, get involved.
I love that. Yeah. We're going to take a short break for a segment that I like to call Precious Gems. This is where I share a comment or a question from someone on social media. So today I've got a comment from the Code Mason on Instagram. They responded to one of the best quotes I've ever had on the show. Hital, she said, "Until you fail, you will not know what success feels like." This is probably one of the most popular posts I've ever put out on any platform. And yeah, they said, especially when you read the wisdom of things, failing is actually a part of the process to succeed. Yeah. I very much agree with that. So Thank you, the code Mason, for your comment. All right, back to this. Yeah, so I saw that recently you went to a great event that I had never heard of. It was the Black Tech Fest. How was that? What was your experience? I think that's great.
Yeah, oh my God, it was amazing. It was an event run by an organization called Colour in Tech, who are a UK-based community for Black people in the technology sector. So that's not just software engineering; it's all aspects of tech. And it was full of workshops and talks. And actually, our group at CyberSafe, we just kind of launched a Black people at CyberSafe employee resource group, and we did our first ever like group trip to go there, which was really nice. Yeah, it was a great experience. I think one of the things I took away from there was just how much people were willing to share with each other, just in terms of like information, advice. It was a place where I don't think I'd had so many conversations with so many different people. Everybody was just really open and friendly, and it was really refreshing. I don't know if you've ever, if it's similar in London where you are, but in London, people can be quite standoffish and a little bit like, not standoffish, that's a bit too dramatic, but maybe just like it's a little bit harder to meet new people because people are so used to being around so many people. And it was the opposite of that. It was a very open and inclusive space, and yeah, I
That's
really enjoyed
awesome.
it.
Yeah, I'm in Florida, so it's the exact opposite here. People are way too friendly and too like overbearing, asking you weird questions that a stranger really should not be asking. I really miss London. I traveled there 6 times. I've been there so many times that some American tourist asked me on the street where the nearest ATM was to where, and I
Oh,
knew, and I was like, it's right there.
that's sweet.
Yeah,
What is it that you love
I,
about London?
oh my goodness, Harrods.
Hmm.
That's like the number one thing. But I like castles and stuff like that because we don't have that here. We don't have that in America.
Yeah.
Like all of our stuff is pretty new,
Hmm.
relatively new. So just the history of every street that I would walk down, I would, like research stuff that had happened around there. Tower of London, I went there twice, I think, and I highly recommend that for anybody that goes to London. It's like a must do
Yeah.
to to see the armory and the crown jewels,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
that
it's
clearly
spectacular.
that was my brand always.
I love
The
that.
crown jewels. Yeah, speaking of that, this tiara is a very cheap replica of the queen's tiara from I forget what event she wore this at, but yeah, this is
Oh, that's
modeled
very
after one of
cool.
hers. Yeah.
Nice.
RIP. But yeah. Um yeah, so let's talk about your podcast too, Glowing in Tech. I think that that is a great name first of all. I love that glowing because we should all have that inner light and confidence. But yeah, like, how did you start it? What is it about?
Yeah, no, so we started it. I think the idea came about just over a year ago now. Myself and Amber, who I host it with, were kind of talking about all of the fantastic role models we know from our involvement with the Coding Black Females community, and having spoken to a lot of people who are from a similar background, like Black women or Black people or women, we were kind of realizing that if you want to get good at talking technical concepts and being comfortable understanding these technical terms and looking up to technical role models, there are only really a few from a certain demographic when you look online and you're trying to kind of increase that that exposure to all these technical terms. And so when we were looking online for content, we were struggling to find anything that wasn't from that um, particular dominant demographic. And so rather than moan about it and kind of get upset about it, we were thinking like, why don't we just give it a go and see if we can do it? And so yeah, we created Coding Black Females, and the idea behind the season that we've just wrapped up filming is kind of celebrating and platforming these incredible women that we have the opportunity to know and speak to. So they are all people that we've been incredibly inspired by, who have done excellent things in their tech journey, and we really wanted to make sure that we were amplifying their voices and giving them a place to celebrate that and be celebrated, and kind of providing those role models to people who might not have the luck to be London based or in tech yet to know them. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a whole list of people that I can send you
Oh,
who
yes,
would
please.
love to be on your show. I've had a lot of really inspirational ladies of color on the
Hmm.
show. So um, yeah, but like, how do you find the time to do all these things? I know people ask me that a lot, and I'm like, I feel like I lay in bed and watch TV a great deal, and people don't realize that. What is the experience for you?
Definitely. I think so I'm neurodivergent. I am
Same.
yes, yay. Severe combined ADHD and also autism. So I think that that has a lot to play in kind of what I have the kind of capacity to do. I do make sure that I rest a lot, and I do have those binge Netflix days and um, video games and kind of all the
Ooh,
things that I enjoy doing. But I think that I just get so interested and passionate about technical things and technical people that that is also very fun and relaxing for me. Like I get so much joy from doing those things. And also I think just it I don't know about you, but just making sure that you're scheduling in things so that you're doing a few at a time and like kind of
yeah,
doing things. It probably looks like we have it more spread out than we do, but we are like efficient with time and making sure that we're yeah squeezing in as much as we can when we have the energy and capacity to do so. How about you? What's
exactly.
your secret?
I am bipolar. So there are times when I'm riding high. I'm like, I can concentrate real like super well, and I can just code, and I can make content. And on the flip side of that, there are times where I'm the exact opposite. I can't do anything. I can't get out of bed. I can't concentrate. But understanding that process has really helped me to plan out content. Now, for me, I know all of my content is planned out like 2 or 3 months ahead. Like, because inherently I know, especially for this podcast, there are some times where I cancel, sometimes where the other person cancels, and so scheduling is hard. I take breaks too, actually. This podcast episode is the last one for um, this year, actually. After this, I will take off for about 2 months just to make sure that I can record enough episodes to put them out weekly. And then also to take vacation, like you have to rest. Yeah. But
Absolutely. Rest is so important. And I really love that you were saying about kind of moving with those waves that you have. It's kind of respecting yourself enough to know, like, okay, I'm going to have like a quieter phase now. And then, when you have that energy, okay, now I have the capacity to do more than before. And like, rather than working against your body and getting frustrated with yourself that, like, oh, I'm not doing enough now or I'm doing too much, it's like, it's just kind of working with that, right? And there will be times where you're able to do more and times where you're able to do less. And I think, like you said, that kind of scheduling and doing things for the future and helping your future self out a little bit can make it look like you're being more consistent to the outside world than you actually are. Because there are definitely times where there's like weeks go by and I'm not doing very much at all outside of my
yeah,
day job, and that's completely fine. Like yeah, we need
it
to.
is. Yeah, it is completely fine. And I'll actually tell you this past weekend, last Friday, I was riding high, I was manic, and on a whim, I decided to migrate my website to Cloudflare to, like make it load normally because it wasn't before. So anybody that goes to my website, HoffsTech.com, it'll load like in a snap
Oh, wow.
because I was manic and I decided to migrate to Cloudflare one night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's my life. That's what I do. I have these like ideas and then I just do them without any planning or thinking. So I don't suggest that anybody just migrates to Cloudflare on a whim
Yeah, I
because
was gonna ask, how was that?
my site was down for a day. And I don't know why I didn't think about that ahead of time. I had to change the name servers. Duh, of course it's going to be down while the DNS is propagating. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not
Mm-hmm.
instant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a like corporation who has access to tools and stuff like that, so I had to wait. But it works now, so yay.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Um yeah, so let's talk more about representation. How do we get more Black women interested in tech? And we'll preface this by saying, in my experience, I've worked with probably I could count them on two hands. In 20 years, I've worked with maybe like 10, 10 women, and that's it. I want more. How do we get more?
Yeah, so I think it all starts with paying it back. Like that's one of the reasons I'm so motivated to continue to contribute to all the communities that I can, is because I wouldn't be where I was if I hadn't been helped to do that. And like I know the impact you can have just by answering a few questions, sharing your advice and things like that. So I definitely think like if you are a woman in tech, do all you can to make sure that you're paying it forward and helping other people out. It can be as simple as answering those DMs on LinkedIn, or kind of putting yourself out there a little bit and going and speaking at tech events. And then if you're an ally in tech, I think it goes with kind of going that step forward, step further, and looking for volunteering opportunities where you can contribute to making that difference. And that can look like donating an hour a week of your time as a mentor, or finding some way to financially or kind of provide resource in terms of a venue with your workplace for an organization that does that, or being an instructor and doing something where you're actively participating in those people coming up into the tech space. And then there's another part of it, which is we know that women who make it into tech, who've done all that work, are far more likely to burn out really early in their careers, or just leave because of how hostile it can be. So, what are you doing to support the women that are here? How are you helping them to thrive? Are you giving them all of the opportunities that they need in order to progress? And kind of thinking about, it's not necessarily your responsibility to fix the entire tech industry. It's going to take a very long time, unfortunately. Well, hopefully not too long. But what are your what is it you're doing to participate in making that a better place? I think those are the things that I'd think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people, have this idea that mentoring is really time consuming. And I always tell people that people generally only come to you when they need something. That's just kind of the truth of stuff. So it isn't like every single day. I mentor tons of people. I can't even count anymore. But it's just like a response to a question, or communities chatting through problems and stuff like that. It's also optional. You don't have to respond to the person immediately. It can take a little time, but if you at least try and just help people, then it'll make the world a better place. I keep trying
Definitely,
to
definitely.
get people. Yeah.
And as someone that's been in the industry for a little while now, like what you have beaten the odds, first of all, in terms of getting to where you are, but staying as well. Like what's something that's helped you? What have you seen that's worked well? And how are you seeing it change as the years go by?
Yeah. First of all, I always love having other podcast hosts on here because you'll like ask me questions too. But yeah, for me, how did I get by? I don't know. Support. Yeah. I have a lot of mentors, at least six, probably more overall. But I've had a lot of support overall. But I'm also mentally unstable. So when people tell me I can't do something, I'm like, hold my beer. I will not only show you that I can do this, I will blow your socks off. Like, seriously, I'm going to do so well at this thing that you're going to rue the day that you told me I couldn't.
Yes, I can relate to that so much.
Not the best way to be, because it causes me a lot of stress. Like I could do less, but well, I'm here. I'm trying. So that's all you can do, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um yeah, so like advice do you have for specifically Black women who are interested in tech?
I think be curious, and it's okay to change your mind even once you've made the decision to commit to being in tech. I think people can often see as like, oh, I've dedicated myself to learning cloud, so if I don't go into cloud computing, I failed. And I don't think that's the case at all. Like it can take a few different transitions to figure out the one that's for you. I thought that I'd be in love with the front end, and that was where I was going to dedicate all my time. And now I'm very happily in the back end, and I'm enjoying that for now, but who knows, maybe I'll switch back in a couple of years time. But yeah, I do think just that kind of progression isn't always linear. We're moving away from that as a concept and realizing that we do have the ability to be a bit more squiggly in what we want to do. And then also, yeah, similar to you, benefit so much from support. If you do feel like you're getting overwhelmed or you're unsure if this is the place for you, that's a sign that you probably need someone to help back you up and give you that like confidence boost or piece of advice or just something. Like don't feel bad for reaching out. Try and get as involved as possible in communities and use them as a resource to help you feel empowered to do what you need to do to get into tech.
Absolutely. I love that you touched on like you can switch if you're not happy. You don't have to stay in one career. I think a lot of people have this concept that whatever you studied when you were in your friggin' 20s or whatever is what you have to do for the rest of your life. Okay, first of all, our lifespans have really increased. We're living to be like 100 now, right? Like life is long. Do what you want. You have to be happy. You deserve to be happy every single day. And if your career is not something that you want to do anymore, you have every right to change that. Don't be afraid. Like that that's life. We just all have a journey, I'd say. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes those changes might seem nonsensical at the time you're making them, but often
Mhm.
when you look back, like it will all make sense. Like for my journey, at least, I can feel like, oh, this has helped me with this thing. And that led me to find this thing. And like, even though at the time they weren't very connected, I'm still using things from my psychology degree and I'm still using things from my customer success days. Like it all contributes to the holistic human that I am now. And it's the same for all of the changes you might need to make in your career too.
Absolutely. And I will say, like, technologies are often related in very strange ways. Like I have spent my entire career in C sharp, pretty much. Now I'm writing a video game in Unity. I keep trying to say Udemy. That's different. Yeah.
That's so
But like
cool.
this experience, oh my God, I love it. I love it so much. I can't wait for my game to like come out. I have a artist I've hired, and he just sent me like little animations for the main player character. I'm so
That's so
excited.
sweet. Oh.
But yeah, personal projects are great. Absolutely. Start there, I'd
Mhm.
say.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Looking at the clock, I'm always like astounded that I've been talking to people for almost an hour because it feels like we've been talking for 5 minutes. But
Yeah.
I am cognizant of your time, so I will end this episode. But before I let you go, can you tell people where to connect with you online?
Definitely. So please get in contact and let's chat. I'm on Twitter at _JESSIE_BELLE or at Glowing in Tech on all social media platforms for the podcast. And yeah, let's chat.
That's awesome. Jessie, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Shelley. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you.
If you want to support us, please like, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow gems. Let me know in the comments what other topics you would like me to cover, and follow Tiaras and Tech on social media and use the hashtag MakeYourselfShine. Thanks for watching or listening, and have a great day.